Hi, it's Jackleen. Happy full moon in Aquarius. The full moon will be this Saturday, August 9th at 12:55 a.m. And I'm recording this on Thursday. So if you see it before, great. If you see it after, great. I always down to the wire on this, and my goal is to get a few days before. But during this Mercury retrograde, and I will blame the Mercury retrograde because why not? It was harder. Got a lot of things going on, as is typical during a Mercury retrograde. So I will say that we are in a Mercury retrograde until the 11th of August, and then give it till about the 17th to get back up to speed and out of that storm period. So on the 11th, heads up. But let's talk about this Aquarius full moon. You know, the full moon is the sun on one side, the moon on the other side, direct polar opposite. There's always some tension around the full moon. And following the 2 weeks following a full moon is a time to let go of, release, clean, declutter, all that kind of stuff, complete, as opposed to start new things for the most part. This is a very interesting full moon. When I looked at the chart for the first time, what I saw was a grand trine with pretty heavy hitting planets, Uranus, Pluto, and Mars in a grand trine. Now, grand trine is like a trifecta at the races. It is lucky no matter what planets are involved, but working with those planets is the best way to reap that reward and that luck. And so working hard, doing the work you need to do without pushing too hard, right? Without like trying to make it happen if it's pushing back at you too much. So we have to kind of strike that balance between I really want this and everything's against me, so I'm gonna push it through, or do we kind of work with the forces that be? And that's what I would suggest. So being as centered as you can and as grounded as you can during this time is highly favored, because a lot of people around a full moon, and this one will be no exception, are going to be running around like chickens with their head cut off. I'm just going to tell you that generally does happen. I don't know if any of you, like myself, have a partner that is very full moon excitable, I guess. Someone who, where there might be a little bit of a difficulty, that person gets emotional or angry or some, just in general, they're sensitive to the moon. I myself am very sensitive to the moon. You probably are, because you're watching this, right? You're tuned into the moon. It regulates the tides, and it regulates kind of our own emotional experience. And here we have a Leo sun, which is very brash and out there and forward presenting. And this Aquarius moon, it's kind of like the me-we kind of dichotomy. That's how I look at the Leo Aquarius, whether it's the moon or the sun in each one. Opposition is that it's between the me and the we. Where do I draw that balance? That's what we're going to be looking at during this full moon. But there's a lucky grand trine that really brings together elements that maybe aren't always in harmony. Back in 2020, the outer planets were not in harmony. Pluto and Uranus, not in harmony, right? But now, here in 2025, things are coming together in a nice trine. So think about the people that maybe you were really at odds with about 5 years ago, maybe relatives, people with different religious, political, or other kind of beliefs. And maybe is there a little bit more common ground right now? Are there some things that you can agree on a little bit more? Because again, I think what this is leading to is a little bit more unity and a little bit more meeting in the middle of the political, and it doesn't necessarily mean middle of the road politically or religiously or anything like that, but just finding those common areas that we can agree on. Okay, another thing that's happening is Venus and Jupiter are cozied up in Cancer, and that's the sign of the counselor, that's the sign of the healer, the helper. If you're helping people buy a house, find love, find money, wow, you're really in business right now. That's the business to be in, and that's the business to tell people that you're in, if you are in it, and kind of get the word out about what you're doing, because people want that one-on-one kind of healing, maybe a little hand holding at this time. Your intuition plays into it a lot because Cancer is an intuitive sign. It's a feeling sign. People are having crazy feelings right now and all kinds of feelings. So if you're a therapist, a coach, intuitive counselor, if you're an acupuncturist, a massage therapist, these are really good things. Even a real estate agent that really, and there's two kinds of real estate agents, and I've been lucky a couple of times to meet the right kind where they can do magic. And I've been telling a lot of people that's the kind of agent you need to find. That's the kind of coach you need to find. That's the kind of whatever lawyer, any kind of the people that work one-on-one. You're going to be able to see if there's magic there or not, and you're going to be able to feel that. So kind of feel into that person. Is this a good fit for me? Do we speak the same language? Do we have the same values? But yes, this is a good time to work one-on-one, whether you're the client or the practitioner. So that comes up very strong. There's also creative energy around that Venus Jupiter, right? Venus and Jupiter have a lot to do with money and fortune. And how are you going to make money right now? Well, creativity is part of it, right? Thinking outside the box, but also like artistic creativity, home decor, things like that. Things that make people feel more at ease and more comfortable. That is really, really favored right now. So that's one of the things I have to say about this. What else? Oh, Mercury. Mercury, as you know, is is retrograde right now, but it's also very aspected by other planets. And so as much as these three planets, Pluto, Uranus, and Mars, are very, very activated and aspected in this chart, so is Mercury. Communications are really important. And the thing about the retrograde, think about what people are talking about right now in the news, in the world, what's the discourse on social media. That's going to stick around for a while because Mercury is in retrograde, and the chart of the full moon sort of traps that Mercury in retrograde. And so there's things that people aren't going to shut up about or aren't going to, be distracted from so easily right now. And there's kind of a bit of an awakening going on, however you want to characterize that. But I had mentioned this before because it's a longer lasting transit. We've got Neptune and Saturn cozied up, conjunct as well in Aries. And so there's it's kind of like the illusion is falling apart. And that can be anything. That could be within a relationship, within a job. What you thought your dream was, that might shift. That might completely fall apart. That might need to be rebuilt. And certainly in the political atmosphere, you're going to see a little bit more of that. I want to share with you the Sabian symbol for this degree of Aquarius, which is where the moon is right now. A man's secret motives and being publicly unmasked. A man's secret motives and being publicly unmasked. Make of that what you will. The keynote is the difficulty for the modern individual to keep secret his private past or his deeper motives. So I'm just going to leave that right there. That might be talking about your boss. That might be talking about your partner, your friend's partner, a friend of a friend, someone we don't even know. But there's a little bit of unmasking just in general happening right now in the world. And this is the full moon right before an eclipse cycle. We do have one more new moon before the eclipse cycle begins. The eclipse, I believe, is the eclipse cycle begins on September 7th, but we will have a new moon on the 22nd, I believe, of August. But this full moon before an eclipse cycle often illuminates what are the themes that we'll be dealing with during the eclipse cycle. So look into your own life and look into kind of our national conversation or international conversation and see what you see there. See if you see anything that might be being worked on over the next month or so, because the eclipse cycle will bring to light things that need to be brought to light. And we're going to see a lot of that happening, probably in little bits and pieces, and in some instances all at once, but pretty much. I looked because I was curious about the U.S. natal chart, and how this full moon would affect us in the US, because there's a lot going on in our politics, of course. Anyone knows that. So I wanted to see what was happening here. And the most important aspect I saw was that Jupiter was coming over the sun, the US natal sun. And that, to me, that cannot be a bad thing. Whatever happens is ultimately for the good. And that's kind of the first sense I got opening the chart of this full moon, that whatever happens now is ultimately for the good, okay? It could be a little rough to go through. There could be a lot of people are having a hard time. People are calling me around this time, and the Mercury retrograde has spared no one that I know, at least, you know. Sometimes if it doesn't aspect any of your planets, you sail right through it. This one has been, these are only anecdotal studies here that I'm doing, because I haven't talked to everyone in the world, of course, but I really haven't talked to anyone that hasn't been affected. And of course, people that are calling me have probably been more affected, right? I say it's an occupational hazard, but rarely do people call me when they're jumping for joy. I would love if they did, because then we could plan for more joy. That'd be fabulous. So why don't you do that? Why don't you call me when you're already jumping for joy, and we can exponentially multiply that joy. But oftentimes people are calling me because there are issues. But I see that there's a lot of crazy energy out there. I'm just letting you know if you don't already know that, right? So that's what our full moon looks like. Anything else I need to say about it? Yeah, Mercury pretty well aspected, good and bad. And so there will be those moments where you put your foot in your mouth, and there will be people who put their foot in the mouth and then they get fired, and then there's a whole kind of an unraveling. I will kind of let people know that is possible. So and I don't want to say don't put your foot in your mouth, but don't do it from a place of uncenteredness or reactionary, kind of in a reactionary way, right? Do it in a in a centered and grounded way. If you have something to say, yeah, sure, say it. Let the chips fall where they may, and maybe that's the best thing. But there are some repercussions. Let's put it that way. There are some repercussions to what may happen as a result of something that's said because of Mercury, or something that's published online, something you post. Someone at your work is going to see what you put on Facebook or X or one of the other platforms and be like, we're going to have a meeting. So just so you know, if you walk any of those lines, some of that might happen, but communications is very important, and you may actually, on the other side of the coin, say the right thing at the right time. And so the more you can get centered and grounded, connect with your guidance, so important right now to be in that space, because you'll slow down, you won't react, you will respond, and maybe you'll wait a little bit before responding, and maybe it's not worth even responding. So there's something else that I want to throw out there. Let's see if there's anything else I need to say. There probably is. I wrote something today. If you want to join on Patreon as either a free or almost free member, I've written a little bit of some of what I said today, maybe something a little bit different about my first impressions of this full moon. But I do think it's positive. Again, a full moon doesn't come without consequences, without challenges, but it overall looks pretty positive with that grand trine. There's going to be luck that comes from this. Line yourself up put yourself somehow in the line of that luck. Ask for the thing that you do want. Be I don't say, what's the word? Do your due diligence, right? Know what you want to say. Be centered and grounded in the saying of it. We have some void of courses this month too, and I always tell people I post on Patreon the whole month's void of course moons. Don't do things during a void of course and a Mercury retrograde. And you know what? I'm saying that as I'm recording this during a void of course and a Mercury retrograde, but I'm not going to put it on YouTube until after, because it's kind of that official thing. I say you can fly. I was telling someone on Patreon, it's fine if you fly during a void of course moon, but maybe not buy your ticket during a void of course and Mercury retrograde kind of mash up. So all of those things happening at once. There is a lot going on right now. So be safe out there. Be centered. Be mindful. Know that not everyone has seen this or a similar video that says, take a deep breath. not everything needs to be reacted to. And create your own peace around you before you go out into the world. Happy Aquarius full moon, and I hope it's a good couple of weeks for you. Bye-bye.